I think that right now is such an important time in history with our economy that it is more important than ever to watch what the officials and what the big governments and the central banks are doing rather than what they're saying. Because one of the biggest scams that we've been seeing lately is a lot of these institutions, especially the government, has tried to step forward lately and say, don't worry guys, everything's fine, we got this all under control. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, everyone is scrambling to try and put together a plan to try and prevent future bank failures and all kinds of things from happening, because there is serious risk in the system right now. And us as citizens and consumers cannot ignore these risks. And you can choose to bury your head in the sand, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the video, or you can be up on what's happening and be ready to do something about it. But before we go any further, let me just show you guys a couple of houses real quick. Last time I walked by these houses, there's two right next to each other for sale, probably way overpriced, still available because it's been a while since I've been over here. Let's see.
Yep, I was right. Both of these properties are flips and they were purchased by the same investor. One was bought back in February 2022 for $3.28 million, and now it's listed for $3,475,000 with the price cut. The second one was paid for $3.2 million, also with a price cut at $3.675 million, and no one is buying, and rightfully so. This is a really high-end flip in terms of the price point, and because their purchase price was so close to what they're asking, I doubt they're going to be able to flip these properties. Good luck, guys.
Regardless of whatever the leaders say, we know something's wrong when we see 6 of the biggest central banks from around the world get together over this past weekend in order to basically rescue the financial markets. Because what they're doing, now that Credit Suisse has been the next one that has gone down and UBS took over, you know, that's another bank failure over the weekend. First of all, you guys seeing the common theme here? These huge bank failures seem to be happening over the weekend when people can't really do anything about it. But beyond that, the Federal Reserve in the US here, along with the European Central Bank, the Bank of England, the Swiss National Bank, the Bank of Canada, and the Bank of Japan announced fresh measures to ensure there's enough funding for global financial institutions amid the current stressed market conditions. So what they're doing is they're increasing the credit swap lines that are available between these big 6 central banks in order to prevent further liquidity crunches among these banks. So basically, what all these banks are doing is they're pooling their resources together to try and prevent massive failures in the system right now, which on the one hand is probably a good thing because it does give a little bit of a reassurance to us as customers that at least action is being taken. But on the other hand, you know, when you have people coming out and saying that everything is solid right now and there's nothing to worry about after we have seen, you know, 4 bank failures in the last week and a half, that's not very reassuring. And this week, speaking of watching what they do versus what they say, all eyes are going to be on the Fed, because as we know, the next Fed meeting is this week and we don't really know what they're going to do. There's been talk of an interest rate hike, there's been talk of interest rate pauses, but if you ask me, it doesn't really matter what they do. Like I talked about in a video last week, I think no matter what they decide to do, it's going to be bad news for the market. You know, they increase interest rates, great. That just made lending more expensive and can cause even more banking problems in the near future. They pause on interest rate hikes at a time when inflation is raging. What kind of message does that send to the general public and investors about where the economy stands right now? It means that they're scared to increase points just a hair further because they're worried about everything collapsing. So no matter what they do, it's not going to be good, okay? So I don't really care what they do. I hope they continue with the interest rate hikes. I think that's the right thing to do, but we will find out soon enough. And just right along the lines of what I was just saying, guys, watch what they do. Well, what do I mean? Look at Amazon. Amazon is now laying off an additional 9,000 people. Imagine how many 9,000 people is after they just fired 18,000 people just a little while ago. So if things are going so well in the economy and there's nothing to worry about, why would one of the biggest tech companies in the world be letting go of this many people? Okay, that's another thing to pay attention to, is how many layoffs that we have been seeing on a consistent basis. This most recent layoff accounts for about 3% of their 282,000 corporate workforce. And once again, these are white collar layoffs, people that earn a lot of money. These are not Amazon delivery drivers we're talking about. These are people that are in the cloud computing division over at Amazon Web Services, people in their advertising department, things like that. Our friend the leaf blower. Supposedly they outlawed the gas leaf blowers here, but no one really cares. Laws and rules are meant to be broken, right? Gotta love it. And here's what the CEO of Amazon said, and listen to his words carefully. He says that this layoff made sense given what is happening in our business and the economy as a whole. So obviously Amazon is concerned about the direction of things right now. And if they were feeling good about the economy, they definitely would not be laying off an additional 9,000 people. And then he goes on to say, however, given the uncertain economy in which we reside and the uncertainty that exists in the near future, we have chosen to be more streamlined in our costs and our headcount. So, as usual, publicly traded companies are going to look out for numero uno, not you if you're an employee. Heads up on that. And the next commonality that we see among all these corporate layoffs is this: Amazon's stock price has lost 40% of its value in just the last year, okay? And on Monday alone, it dropped 1.5%. So there's that. And I told you guys in many other videos, in case you missed it, if you work for a publicly traded company, you need to watch the stock price, guys. If you see it dropping, expect layoffs coming very soon if they haven't happened already. And even if they have happened already, doesn't mean there's not more to come. So keep that in mind. Whenever Amazon was asked about why they didn't lay off all these people during the last round of layoffs, they said because they have lost an additional $300 million in the fourth quarter of last year. And overall, Amazon reported a net loss of $2.7 billion in 2022. And obviously they're not alone. We've seen the layoffs at Twitter and Microsoft and Google, Meta, you name it. They've all been doing layoffs. And all I got to say is I hope a lot of these high income earners didn't just buy a house, because if they did, they're probably going to be in for trouble very soon. And we know that people that make a lot of money tend to buy very expensive homes, and it's going to be tough to make that high mortgage payment when you don't have a job. But speaking of layoffs, here's something interesting that one of my channel members, Nick, sent me that you guys should all know about, especially remote workers or people that might be considering a remote work position, because there was an interesting story about how more people are starting to use contingencies in their offers when they're buying a home that are basically employment contingencies. And how it works is just like any other contingency in the real estate contract. So you put in an offer on a home, and one of the contingencies to the contract will be, well, if I lose my job at any point during the escrow period of this home before we close, then I'm entitled to a full refund on my deposit, and you can't sue me, and I don't have to buy the house. And people are actually agreeing to this right now because of all the uncertainty out there. I think this is interesting for a couple of reasons. Number one is the fact that people are actually worried enough about this right now that they are putting this in their real estate contracts when buying a home. They must be thinking in the back of their mind that it might be possible for them to lose their job during the time that they're in escrow. And the first thing that came to my mind when I heard this is, what happens after you buy the house? Then you're really screwed, you know? It's one thing to get out of the contract, but once you own the property, if you lose your job a couple months later, then you're really in trouble. Wow, check this car out. But the other thing that comes to my mind is, if people are so uncertain about their futures with their jobs, why are they going out and buying homes? This guy from the story is buying a $1 million co-op in New York City, and his escrow deposit alone is 6 figures. So probably put down 10%, that's 100 grand, and he's worried about that 100 grand. But if you're so worried about losing your job, why would you be going out and putting that kind of money on the line right now to buy a $1 million co-op if you're uncertain about your employment future? I mean, to me, the mentality of that makes no sense at all. And it just goes to show you, once again, how irrational the average person is when it comes to buying real estate. Because that decision just sounds like insanity to me. I wouldn't be doing anything like that.
Now this one is pretty shocking, to be quite honest. You got a brand new house here that's still being built, but it's already under contract, and the price was a whopping $8,250,000. I don't know what they agreed on, but they bought this place back in 2017 for $1.5 million. Put this brand new house here, and in about a month they already have it under contract. So let's see if it actually closes. That's some big money right there.
Now, over the weekend, during the most recent bank failure, I asked you guys in another poll what you are doing with your money right now, because obviously there is a lot of uncertainty when it comes to the banks, what we should do with our cash, etc. And I put up a poll. Some people were upset that I didn't have more options, but I can't think of everything, guys. But here was the poll and what I said and what the options were. I said, I'm taking money out of my bank and I'm doing what with it? 23% said putting it in one of the large banks like Bank of America, Chase, JP Morgan, the so-called too big to fail banks. 32% said buying gold and silver. 15% said buying real estate. And 11% said buying U.S. Treasuries, and 18% mentioned all of the above. So right away, what I gather from this poll is more than 50% of you are either buying gold and silver, or you are putting your money into a bigger institution, basically moving it out of a regional bank and into one of the too big to fail banks. And the first thing that I gather from that data is that people are scared right now and are unsure of what they should be doing with their money. And now that Janet Yellen came out and said that only the banks that are considered too big to fail or pose a systemic risk to the banking system would be completely bailed out. But in the future, if we see more bank failures and they're not considered a systemic risk, like Silicon Valley, for example, then they won't be bailed out. And it's even unclear if people in that case would get their FDIC insured amount back. We don't even know, guys. And here's where I want to get into some of the things that people mentioned here in the comments. I took some screenshots. I'm going to put them up on the screen that kind of provide further info on what you are all thinking. And I think this is interesting because it just goes to show what people have in their minds about how they're handling this situation right now. Some of you mentioned that you're growing food or learning how to. I think that's a smart thing no matter what's going on in the economy, because you can always save money by growing your own food. So there's that. You have this one saying that taking money out of smaller banks and putting it into a large bank is exactly what they want you to do. Makes it easier for them when the CBDC starts in July. Now, it hasn't been confirmed that the CBDC is going to start in July, so there's that. We don't know. But the thing is, this person is exactly right that this is exactly the plan in terms of getting the CBDC together and actually having this go on. I understand the fear. People are like, okay, if I'm in one of these smaller regional banks and it fails, at least if I have my money in one of the bigger ones, I'm guaranteed to get my money back. Or at least that's the kind of the status quo thought right now. But by doing so, you're just making it easier for this whole CBDC nightmare to potentially come to fruition in the future. So that's a problem. Now here's one that said gold and silver can't be traded directly for goods and services. Like all investments, they're just there to hedge currency fluctuations, and they're good for that, but they aren't making any more land either, so I'm buying land to grow food on. So it's smart to buy land to grow food on, But the thing is, guys, if this whole banking system does collapse, gold and silver has been money for the past 6,000 years, and it still is right now. In fact, all the BRICS nations have been stacking gold and silver like there's no tomorrow in order to back their currency so they don't have to trade on the petrodollar anymore to buy oil in US dollars. So people that think that gold and silver cannot be traded for anything as money is just false, okay? Because in the event that dollars become worthless and no one wants them, people are going to want the gold and silver because that's going to be considered real money in other parts of the world. And then you're seeing a whole restructuring of the global financial system at that point. So to say that that's not going to be accepted as currency is probably flat out false, guys. And I think a lot of people that if we get into a situation where the dollar becomes worthless, that a lot of people will be accepting gold and silver as payment. You know, take one of these houses for example. If I'm the owner of this house and I want to sell and I know dollars are worthless, I would gladly accept gold and silver as payment for the house, okay? Why wouldn't you? Especially if you can turn around and give that gold and silver to someone else for maybe a car or possibly groceries, anything that we actually need, right? So to say that it could never happen, well, we don't know that. And especially you have states like Missouri, guys, that are looking at making gold legal tender in their state. And I wonder if more states are going to take this action now that they're starting to see the risk of keeping the dollar as the only form of currency.
This place has been on the market for a little over 3 months, since December of 2022. They started off asking 3.9, now they're down to 3.8. And based on what those houses at the beginning of the video sold for, around the 3.2 mark, I don't see them getting anywhere close to this price. So we'll keep an eye on this one and come back and see if it actually sells and for how much.
Now here's an interesting comment. Should be an option to say none of the above to see how many care about things falling apart. I would be one of them, and we'll continue with my current 2 banks and see what happens. So I think this person has a point, and it's kind of a sad point, to be quite honest, because it shows you how many people probably just don't care about any of this that's going on and are just going to keep doing things business as usual. But I will say the one advantage to that is the less people that are worried about this, then the less chance there's going to be of future bank runs, which ultimately is good for the banking system, because bank runs are what's going to cause more collapse into the future. And the less people that do bank runs and are concerned about this and pull all their monies out of the bank, then the less likely we are to see problems from this. So there is a slight advantage here in being just ignorant or careless about the whole situation, which is not typical, but in this case I would say is a little bit valid. But this next comment just goes to show the ignorance of some people, and I have to point this out. So if you're the one who said this, you're gonna get roasted here for a minute. Anyone with less than 250K in deposits is insured by FDIC. Most people in the US are well under that threshold. 99% of the public really don't have anything to worry about. And this just goes to show you how much people don't know about what's happening right now. Because if there are multiple bank runs and multiple bank failures in the near future, stacked up close to each other, just like the ones we've just seen, the FDIC is grossly underinsured, guys. So let's say we see 4 more banks fail before the end of March, right? Theoretically. And the FDIC has to pay out all the insured deposits. And let's say they're not going to pay out any deposits that are not insured. So people that have more than 250, you lose. That's it. Anything over 250, that's on you, which is the way it should be, by the way. But anyhow, let's say that happens. The FDIC is going to be out of money, guys, which means any further bank failures after that, good luck getting anything. You're more likely to see a bank bail in, where the bank's going to turn around and say, oh, sorry, the FDIC is out of money, guys, so we're just going to go ahead and give you shares in this worthless bank as payment for all the money you have with us, and now you basically have nothing. So that can happen.
A lot of these flippers are getting burned and have gotten completely in over their heads. They bought this place in March of 2022 for $3.4 million, tried turning around and listing it for $4.2 million, went through several price cuts down to $3.6, and then decided to take it off the market. They tried selling it for a year, no one bought it, and now it's just sitting here. And well, that's what happens when you take big gambles like this.
So it's my thought that taking this ignorant stance on things and just thinking if you have less than 250 that you're automatically going to be covered, yeah, not in the event of multiple bank failures in a short period of time. That's not going to happen, guys, unless there is some massive change to the system. And that's something I want to talk about in tomorrow's video, because there was a recent proposal about a possible massive change to the system that I'm not even sure how I feel about it yet, but I'm going to bring it up and talk to you guys about it and see what you think. And then a lot of people are saying that they're jumping into buying Bitcoin as well, you know. In fact, guys, if you go and look at what happened ever since the first bank failure starting around March 10th, Bitcoin went from $20,000 on March 10th to today, when I'm shooting this, to $27,000. That's over a 20% increase in just a week and a half, which is pretty astounding. And it just goes to show you that people are not trusting the financial institutions right now, and they'd rather trust something like Bitcoin over keeping their money in the bank. And it's not just Bitcoin either. We saw gold prices go from $18.41 an ounce to now $19.86 an ounce as of me shooting this, and silver went from $20 to $22 an ounce. So these are people that just don't trust the overall banking system after this, and who could blame them? Because having something outside the current financial institution right now, I believe, is very smart. You guys know that I think gold and silver is a good thing to have. I also own some Bitcoin as well, and I like having the peace of mind knowing that I own money outside of the traditional banking system. And so far, my gut on that has been proven correct after these recent bank failures. And check this out. You know things aren't going so well when you start seeing headlines like this. Here's how you can keep your car when you're filing bankruptcy. So if somebody thought this was a good idea to write an article about right now, clearly there must be an uptick in search volume for people searching how to do this, because people are so far in debt and so broke right now, but they can't lose their car, because if they lose their car, probably can't get to work or really do anything if you live in an area that's car dependent. I'm not going to get too far into this, but basically the premise of this story is that for both Chapter 7 and Chapter 13 bankruptcy, there are provisions through which you might be able to keep your car that you purchased with a secured loan. If you're facing this situation, guys, I'm not trying to tear you down if this is actually you, and I have the link to the full story down below. If you're someone who actually needs this information right now, if you are somebody that may need to file bankruptcy, but you need to find a way to keep your car, then go check out this story, because it has a lot of good information in there that might help you. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because I'm just getting so tired of this narrative that there's no recession and that everything is fine, the banking situation is solid, you know, companies are solid, it's all good. But everything that we're talking about week after week is pointing to the complete opposite, and it's just getting old. You know what I mean? So if you need that help, go check it out. And to end this video on quite a positive note, I ran across something today that I thought was extremely fascinating. Apparently, there is a group of smart young Gen Zers out there who have found a way to pay their rent on their credit card without the transaction fees. And I looked into this many years ago, and it wasn't really possible to do without getting charged a fee high enough that would outweigh the benefits of getting the rewards points or the cash back or whatever. So I just never did it, because it never really made financial sense to do so. Well, now there's this new credit card from Built. They basically allow you to pay your rent with this credit card, and you will not get charged like the 3% transaction fee that you normally would if you do this. And it's possible to do it through all sorts of ways. If there's like an online payment portal, you can pay with this credit card. if your landlord only accepts checks, for example, they will write a check on your behalf and send it to your landlord through this credit card. And it got me thinking, like, well, I don't rent anymore, but I wonder if I can pay my HOA fees with this and my monthly mortgage, because this is great for people that pay off their credit card every single month. And so far, the only catch that I can tell that there is with this is you need to perform at least 5 transactions per month on the credit card in order to be eligible to get these no fees and to collect the points from this. So I was thinking about trying this out, and if it works out, I'll come back and report to you guys how well this works, because, you know, when you're paying a bunch of money in HOA fees and mortgage payments each month, comes straight out of my bank account right now, and if I can put it on a credit card and earn rewards on that, you know, risk-free, I'm game. So I'm going to look into this. I'll let you guys know how it turns out. So this might apply to people who are not just renters. If you have a mortgage payment and you pay with an ACH transfer every month, for example, like I do, then this might actually work for you. So the card is from Bilt, B-I-L-T. Check it out, guys. And if somebody out there is already doing this, let me know in the comments. Be interesting to hear about it. I'm always all about trying to do the smartest financial thing. And, you know, if you are someone who's responsible, that pays off your credit cards in full each month like I do, then there are a lot of great ways to capitalize on things like this out there versus just getting into debt. Oh, look at that. It's a squirrel right there. How cool. Hey, buddy. So the smarter you are with money, guys, the more opportunities there are. And I try to highlight those things here on the channel as well. Some people say it's all negative. I completely disagree, because you can look at things however you want with whatever perspective. But if you use all these things that I'm talking about to your advantage, you can save a ton of money on different things and, you know, really get yourself ahead in life. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you click the bell notification down below. YouTube will alert you every time I post a new video. And if you don't want to wait, check out my next one on the screen right over here. And I'll see you in the next one.